Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, we do have more brand new Scrypt ASICs coming. This is coming from Volcminer. We do have two brand new units, the D1 Hydro and the more interesting D1 Lite. We do have full specs, pricing, efficiency, all the specs. We'll compare it to the competition to see how these units stack up. Okay, so if that sounds good guys, stay tuned. Let's get right to this thing. So here we go, yet more Scrypt ASICs coming, and just expect them to keep coming. Huge shout out to T-Sweat for providing us this info actually yesterday. Kind of waiting for some of the resellers to start listing, and they finally did today. We'll have a link to his Telegram in the description if you guys are interested. But here we go. So a couple big standouts. Number one, the two new units. One being the Volcminer D1 Hydro, which is a monster. 30.4 gigahash, right? Kind of blowing the AlphaPex unit out of the water at 7,600 watts. Okay, so profitability-wise is redonkulous. It is, even at DOGE's current price, which again, we are pretty much lower than we were just a few weeks ago, 80 bucks a day in revenue, $63 a day profit. This is at a 10 cent kilowatt hour, which isn't even realistic because it's going to be an industrial person with these things. They're going to be anywhere from 1 to 5 cents, right? So insane specs. Again, these things are going to be most likely 3-phase, and you're going to have that cooling infrastructure for it. So it's not something that most hosting places will even be able to host either, right? So in reality, it's not going to affect most of us. The interesting unit though is the D1 Lite, okay, 14 gigahash, 4,000 watts, extremely similar to what the AlphaPex DG1 Plus at 14. Well, they have different variants, right? Their top of the line one is 14.4 at 3,900 watts, so extremely similar. Price points are pretty appealing, especially the D1 Lite will focus, so 380, we'll multiply that by the 14 to get the price. 380, 14, 5,300 bucks. The downfall though is the release window, which is horrendous, right? It is not until June 2025. Okay? We're currently in January. We know June means probably the second half of June. Not going to get this thing until July, so potentially 6 months away. So although it is extremely appealing, right, specs-wise, price-wise, having to wait 6 months is, number one, risky. A lot of things can happen between now and then. Delays can happen. Again, we are in the post-halving year, typically peaking sometime Q3, Q4. Imagine if it got delayed for a couple months and you literally only get to mine like 2 months of this bull market. No, if you aren't interested in anything now, the time was 2 years ago. The best time was any time before now. If you're going to order anything, spot, plug it in now. You need to take advantage in order to try to ROI this thing before the end of the big run, right? It doesn't mean that once the peak hits, we're going to zero. It just, you want to maximize the amount of time. And with ASICs or just mining in general, you need to maximize the amount of time. So although, yes, that price is extremely appealing, you have to factor in how much revenue you would generate if you just buy the unit spot versus then. Okay, we'll use the Volcminer D1 as an example. It's currently, your daily rev would be, we're gonna just easy math, it's 48 bucks, we're gonna round it to 50. So 50 by 30, which is how many days in a month, 1,500 bucks, multiply that by the 6 months, $9,000 a day in revenue you'd be missing out by trying to wait for it. Okay, if you're in the process of like building out a farm and it's not going to be ready until then that can make sense, right? Because otherwise the units would just be sitting idle. But again, if you're actively mining now, you're missing out on that much revenue currently. And again, these are at current prices, which we expect them to go up significantly. So you want to have these things ASAP if you are going to buy anything this year. Okay, you need to like stack and accrue as much as you can during this year to maximize this year as much as possible. Okay, so to wait that amount of time extreme risk, right? Out of the newer units, the more appealing one potentially would be the D1 Mini, just because it is coming out a little bit sooner, but it's not until April, which is potentially May. Even that guy is 3 to 4 months away. Okay, so again, it's one of those things where price-wise, it is definitely appealing. Again, if you're not going to utilize it until then it can make sense, but it's just a long ways out, right? So even when we go on like resellers, and Hash has it at 6,000, and again, it's just a June batch, which is just way far out, right? And chances are also by then a lot more units will probably be in circulation, potentially less revenue, less yield because of the hash rate and difficulty increasing, just because there are going to be a ton of units being sold by then, right? And it's kind of interesting timing just because Bitmain is going to release new future batches of L7s in that time frame also. Okay, and these are also pretty cheap units. These are going to be under 5K, but again, not shipping until June, which is, again, extremely far out. I would rather just spend a few more grand and buy spot. I wouldn't personally be interested in L7s. The least efficient units I would be interested in getting are the AlphaPex units. That would kind of be my baseline. Anything less efficient than that, I personally wouldn't be getting. Yes, some of them will make decent revenue, especially this year. But again, if I'm purchasing anything now, it's for looking forward. It is essentially preparing for the next cycle. Okay, so that's why for me, efficiency is going to be important if I'm buying with that mindset of preparing for future cycles. Okay, because otherwise, there are some of these gold shells and such that have worse efficiency, and some that have even worse efficiency than that, and they're going to make money, right? There's no doubt about it, especially if you have free electric or extremely cheap electric. It could make sense, but again, for me personally, I'm kind of limited on the amount of units, and I would prefer to just get the more efficient units. Okay, so again, comparing the D1 Lite to the DG1 Plus, damn near identical, but all day I would just spend the extra money and get this thing spot. Again, we mentioned it'd be about 9,000 bucks a day in revenue you'd be losing, or not a day, but throughout those 6 months you'd be losing. I'd rather just buy one of these things spot. Okay, so a couple other things to think about. For me, if I'm purchasing an ASIC or just any mining hardware in general, I want longevity. Okay, so I want reliability, I want durability. I want to go with things that I have more confidence in. Okay, so for me, AlphaPex so far has been proving themselves. If the cost is going to be about the same, the efficiency is about the same, I'm going to go with the AlphaPex unit. Okay, Volcminer is still unproven. We don't even know reliability, durability. On top of waiting for all that time, a lot of risk factors there. I would rather go with what's more proven. Okay, and then even more so than that, right? If I'm in the market currently, I'm going to go with which one is even more so than that. One that I have more confidence in, and one that's more efficient, right? More efficient units are just going to future-proof yourself in a sense and kind of not necessarily guarantee, but it just adds to the longevity of that unit, right? Because currently, yes, these next 8 to 10 months, everything's going to be profitable, right? L3s will be profitable. We've already seen that briefly. It's going to happen, right? But my viewpoint is I'm looking beyond this cycle. I'm looking beyond the peak. I'm looking for 6 months, a year after. That's what I'm ideally looking for, right? So the more efficient unit, the most reliable unit is still going to be the L9. For me to consider these other units, though, not to say that I wouldn't consider getting an AlphaPex unit, but for a difference of $1,000 or so, I'm going to go with the more superior unit. If the price was lower, like in my honest opinion, this thing needs to be under 9. Okay, if this guy, number one, it's more gigahash, it's a 16 versus 14.4, and more efficient, and arguably just an overall better unit, needs to be cheaper, needs to be more enticing. Same exact story with the Volcminer unit. Okay, it needs to be even cheaper than the AlphaPex unit, or at least comparable to the AlphaPex unit for me to consider, because at that point, at least the Volcminer is more efficient than the AlphaPex unit, right? So at least it does have that going for it. And again, not to say that it's going to be horrible quality, it's just currently unknown. Hopefully, I'm hoping that it is good quality, right? Realistically, we want quality. ASIC manufacturers, we want quality here. We do want longevity. We do want that competition because it's better for us as the consumer. Okay, so hopefully it does pan out well. Hopefully they are solid units. We will be keeping our eyes on them. But currently, as is, if you're in the market at this moment, this just makes more sense. Although currently prices have been dropping consistently, right? They have it at 12.2 currently, but a lot of the other resellers are kind of starting to go a little bit lower, right? Gonna try to see how they get repriced. I think some of them are just kind of iffy right now just because Trump's gonna be in office in about 6 days. And a lot of us are expecting things to kind of start turning around by that point. Doesn't mean that on the 20th we're going to go to 120K Bitcoin. Although it wouldn't be surprising, most of us feel pretty confident if we're looking at historical charts. We're at the beginning of that upwards trajectory here. Okay, so maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Again, my viewpoint is more long term. But I think that's what a lot of the resellers are kind of banking on, right? They don't want to lower too aggressively because of what may happen here. Okay, and even if you are looking for deals, I mean, realistically, I don't see them going much lower where it justifies the risk here. Okay, because at this point, you're gonna risk potentially losing out to save potentially like $500, maybe $1,000, versus on the inverse, we saw what happened when this thing was at 50 cents, when Doge was at 50 cents. These things were 15 to 16K spot. Okay, so at this point, probably not a bad price. I mean, the best price obviously was a few months ago when it was half of this, but this is where we are at. Again, if you're purchasing something now, go in with the mindset that you're kind of purchasing it for a future cycle. Okay, at least for me. Again, it's going to be dependent on your strategy. That's the way I would view it. That's why I have a pretty small list of ASICs I would consider, just because I'm looking for things that are most likely to be profitable beyond this November, December. Okay, so let me know in the comments, guys. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about these shipping windows, these prices? These prices are pretty freaking enticing, though. Maybe we'll see other dips in some of the other units. We'll see, because then at that point, it could become appealing. It's just very dependent on your strategy, guys. But for me to go with a unknown quality, unknown manufacturer, to pre-order something 6 months ahead of time, a lot of red flags, right? So hopefully it turns out extremely awesome. Hopefully they're solid units. But for me, post-halving year, you need to be stacking now. You need to be stacking yesterday. Okay, but let me know in the comments, guys. What do you guys think? Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I am out.